Church family, I just want to reach out to you today and give you an update about the Southern Baptist Convention. Um, we've been in the news lately, and I just felt like it would be appropriate for me to come and share with you personally about what is happening, what I see happening, and what transpired at our Southern Baptist Convention in Anaheim last week. And so I don't know what you all know individually. Obviously, there's been some news articles written and posted on social media and internet, all those kinds of things. So I wanted to start at the beginning, and then I'm going to share with you about our convention and some things like that. So last year at our Southern Baptist Convention in Nashville, Tennessee, there was a large group of people who really felt the need, based upon many accusations, to put together a recommendation that we have a sexual abuse task force to be appointed by our president of the Southern Baptist Convention. Due to what seemed like sexual abuse victims not being heard at an executive level with our Southern Baptist Convention, and that maybe there was some cover up at a higher level to protect maybe pastors or ministers of some kind from being found out in a way. So anyways, that almost unanimously passed for a sexual abuse task force to be put in place over the past year. They had been working, and we anticipated that they would come back finding some things that were not God honoring and that were frankly just despicable. And what we found were many of those things. There's a nearly 300-page report that you can find at SATASKforce.net. That is SATaskforce.net. And you can read all this if you would like, but I want to keep you up to speed that when they reported that back, there were some over 20 years of findings. We found that while for many years we as pastors and messengers to the convention have been asking for more reforms to help churches protect their members from sexual abuse from those in leadership. And we had asked for a database that could be put where we could ministry check, if you will, of folks who have been credibly accused or have been criminally convicted of those things. So when we hire ministers and staff, we could check on that. But over the years, that just never seemed to come fruition. When it would come to our executive committee, it never came back to the messenger. So that report came back, and it was just very alarming. In fact, we found out that our executives did create a list, and they held it in their database, and there were over 700 sexual abuse reports and names connected that they had held but did not disclose the information. And what it seems is that ended up protecting not the victim, but obviously protecting those who were the ones committing the heinous acts. And so this is very disturbing. And so when we came to the Southern Baptist Convention this past week, we came with the Sexual Abuse Task Force with making some recommendations to our convention as to how we move forward. And so what I want you to know is that as a convention as a whole, me as an individual pastor, obviously we speak out in the strongest words possible against sexual abuse. Our hearts and our prayers are with those survivors and those victims who face these horrendous emotional challenges as a result of what they have been through and experienced. And it seems that have even been exacerbated since the many people in leadership have not been willing to hear them and help them. And so I'm adamant that we need reform, and so was our convention. We repent, and have repented and continue to repent over those things that we learn, and hearts are broken over victims that come and tell their stories. And many of those stories have been told via social media or via other ways in the past years. Many of those coming to light even in recent days. And so what happened at the Southern Baptist Convention is, with the Sexual Abuse Task Force, they made two recommendations. The first one was that we as a convention appoint approved for the president to appoint a sexual abuse reform task force. And basically what that reform task force is going to do is be a liaison into the different entities and from like our state conventions and our entity leaders at the national level, like our Ethics and Religious Commission and our seminaries and our North American Mission Board, International Mission Board, Executive Committee, all those areas, state conventions, local associations such as our Madison Baptist Association. They're going to be a liaison and speak into and give counsel as to how these entities and organizations can help, and our churches, to help us be more effective in protecting ourselves from being a place where sexual abuse can take place. Now we know that we live in a fallen world where the enemy seeks to destroy, and we know there's no way possible that we could guarantee 100% that we could rid all Southern Baptist churches of any predators. And it's unfortunately that's where we are in our world. It's impossible because of sin and the fallen nature that we're in. But we need to be doing everything possible we can to protect that. And I believe that this reform committee task force will actually be very helpful to us. So I wanted to let you know that motion passed, that recommendation passed. And so we are making some strides to fix that. The other thing that the other actual motion that was brought forth by this sexual abuse task force was for there to be a ministry check database created that is held at the executive level, so that when we as a church or other churches hire staff or ministers, that we can go to that database, or at least seek out someone who is in charge of that database to give us information if a candidate that we're looking to bring in to serve our church happens to show up on that database. So we have knowledge of that ahead of time and can change course. And so we do feel like that'll be very helpful. One of the things that's been debated is based upon the local church autonomy, meaning the church at the Southern Baptist level is the highest ranking part of the Southern Baptist Convention. How can an entity or someone up, at an executive level speak down to a church and make someone do something? And so we're not structured that way. And so there's been a debate about how these task forces can speak. And so sometimes they're going to have to just make recommendations to the church, because there's not a way that they can force the church to do any certain thing based upon how we are structured and governed as Southern Baptist churches. But how would someone get on that ministry check database? Well, frankly, it would be if they were convicted of sexual abuse in any form, or if they were credibly accused. And there was a lot of discussion at the convention about what does credibly accused mean. And so one of those things would be a civil judgment. Another one of those things would be if there was some investigation done that could prove or more than likely prove that there was credible evidence that this actions took place, then that person could be placed on a sexual abuse database that would hinder him or her. It should be children's person or youth or whatever from making a lateral move to another church or whatever to hide behind just moving around our convention. And so that reform or that amendment or recommendation passed as well overwhelmingly. And so what I want you to know is I don't know what the secular media is saying. I try to tune some of that out, because what you find is that they don't fully understand who we are, what we do, and how we're structured. And so you get their take on something that might not necessarily be truthful. What I can tell you is every person in leadership that has been placed in leadership at this point, post our Southern Baptist Convention a week ago in Anaheim, California, every person in leadership has very clearly and adamantly said they want to do everything possible to make sure that sexual abuse is taken seriously, and that we do everything possible to make sure that it doesn't happen anymore. And so I want you to know that. I want you to have confidence in that. We are ashamed of what has come out. There's been some, wonderful men that I have trusted and thought highly of that we found out some information about that honestly is hurtful, and it saddens us. But we know that we live in a fallen world, and none of us are above the devil tempting us into sin. And so we must forgive, but there's also consequences for actions for those who have fallen. And so we must take that into account as well. And we trust that those local churches are exerting church discipline in a proper way to restore those brothers in their relationship with God and the church. And so I wanted to make you aware of that. I also, so that's what I know about the Sexual Abuse Task Force. I do know that there are other recommendations going to be brought through this reform task force that's now been put in place. And what I do know is that they're going to be looking at putting a credentials committee together that is structured different than the one we have now, in which the credentials committee will be able to say to a church, we're going to disfellowship you if you choose not to take sexual abuse seriously and deal with those sins in your church. And so I know that's coming down the pipe. So I just wanted to say overall that the Southern Baptist Convention is taking this very seriously, and we funded, I think, nearly $4 million in our budget to navigate this process. So it's not just words or lip service, but we're actually putting money to the task of correcting these things and making sure we're in a situation moving forward where we can eliminate as much of this as possible. So if you want to talk more about that with me, I would love to do that. I do probably would do better one-on-one with questions than I am just talking here to my phone and recording. So I am available, and I want to make sure you know that. But I do want to give you just an update on the convention. Thank you for sending me as a messenger. I was able to take my family, and they were messengers, as well as Tom and Teresa Bonds went with us as messengers. So we had 6 people representing you as First Baptist Hazel Green as messengers to the convention. There were a lot of things that took place there. There's a lot of debates about some things that happens at a convention. And what that is, it's basically a 2-day long business meeting. So I know you probably don't like our 10 to 15 minute business meetings, but imagine going for 2 straight days. But it is important because we send money to the Southern Baptist Convention through the cooperative program. And don't quote me on the number, but $40,000 to $50,000 a year goes out of this church to other entities to support cooperative work, missionaries, seminaries, all those kinds of things, multiple other things than that. And so I believe if we're sending money, we ought to send our votes. And so every year I try to go to the Southern Baptist Convention if at all possible. This year in Anaheim, what we found was there's a group of people that have tried to communicate a message that the Southern Baptist Convention is drifting liberal. They don't believe that we're moving liberal fastly, but they think that we're just kind of slowly drifting that way. I personally don't see that taking place. Again, everyone has their rightful opinion, but to me, liberal 20 years ago meant do not believe in the inspired and inerrant Word of God, and so the convention went through that, and we wrestled with that, and we cleaned up our seminaries and all those kinds of things. Today, I don't see that taking place. There are some people that have some concern, like I said, that they're drifting liberal. So these group of people began to, kind of put some people up there to say, hey, we want to change the direction of the Southern Baptist Convention and all. And basically there was just some things that took place that they have done and stood for that I just found sad of how they maneuvered themselves and positioned themselves. I still love some brothers that I know that are friends of mine that are connected to this group, but I just don't see things the same way they are seeing them. So if you hear that the Southern Baptist Convention is going liberal or woke, I think is a word I heard, I just don't see that taking place personally. In fact, every candidate, we had over 5,000 messengers, and every candidate that ran for office that this group put up was defeated. And so we have a very conservative Southern Baptist smaller church pastor. His name is Bart Barber. Graduated from Midwestern Seminary. Been knowing him through mutual friends and social media for a long time, maybe 10 years now, 8 or 9, 10 years. And everything I've ever seen that Bart Barber puts out, he's a pastor at First Baptist Farmersville, Texas. And everything that he puts out is very conservative. And not that I always agree with everything he says, but everything he's put out is conservative. And he's going to lead us well. I'm proud of how he has handled himself in the last months leading up to this convention, and I can just assure you that Bart Barber is going to do a tremendous job representing us as Southern Baptist as the president. And so I wanted to make you aware of that because there are people that are concerned about that. Also, there was another topic that come up, and it's being spun in the media and even by some Baptist pastors to be something that is just simply not. There was a recommendation in last year's convention for us to disband fellowship from Saddleback Church, which is pastored by Rick Warren. He wrote Purpose Driven Life. I believe you guys as a church in the past have gone through that and community groups. And so there are some things that, frankly, Rick Warren does out on the West Coast that I don't approve of. I'd say don't approve. It's not the way we would do it in a traditional Baptist sense. For example, one time he baptized people, if I remember correctly, with a fire hose instead of baptizing them in the waters. So he's done some extreme things. One of the things that he has done is he has ordained a couple of women to serve as a pastor to certain groups in the church. Now they're led by elders, which is different than how we are led, but they have all men who are ordained as elders of their church. But Pastor Rick chooses to believe that there's an office of pastor and a gift of pastoring. All right. And so whether or not you believe that or not believe that, I just wanted to give you kind of the understanding of where it comes from. And so the credentials committee come back to say to the convention whether or not they recommended us disbanding fellowship. And based upon how it was presented, there was no decision made as to whether we would disband fellowship or not, because of what does the term pastor mean in the Southern Baptist Faith and Message of 2000, and how closely does a church have to agree to the Baptist Faith and Message in order to still be Baptist? And so those are the questions that were brought up, and frankly, there just weren't really good answers to all that. Now, we know that in order to hold the office of pastor, the scriptures are super clear that that is a man. Should be an ordained man that would serve as pastor. So I'm very clear about that. No distinction in my heart or my mind regarding what that looks like. However, in other parts and other churches, they're structured differently. And where we have what we call, Miss Misty, we call her a children's minister. There's other people that call them children's pastors, okay? And so it's a slippery slope if we're not careful. They don't mean that the children's pastor, pastors the church. She would overlook the children. Now, we don't call it pastor here to distinguish the difference. But in our Southern Baptist Convention of Cooperation, we have to be very careful how we ostracize people based upon how their church is structured. And so some people said, oh, we're woke because we're having this discussion, or we're liberal because we're having this discussion. I don't think so. In fact, I don't believe in ordaining women to even serve in the gift of pastoring like Rick Warren has. But I do think we need to let our proper governance in the Southern Baptist Convention take place, because our Southern Baptist Convention, we are not a creed people. We are a confessional people. And the Southern Baptist Convention put together the Baptist Faith and Message of 2000. And in that Baptist Faith and Message of 2000, it says that churches must closely align with these doctrines in the Baptist Faith and Message. So the idea is, what does closely align mean? And so I just wanted you to know kind of that the topic came up in case you hear about it. We did not get to make a vote on that, or whether we would disband fellowship or not. The Credentials Committee basically came back, and because there was an amendment made to their motion, the amendment got defeated, and they come back and said they didn't have any further motion to bring. So that is still under consideration, and I believe that we'll hear more about that probably in our convention next year in New Orleans. And so I just wanted to kind of give you an update on that. We heard reports from our seminary presidents. I'm firmly supportive of all those men that are leading those seminaries. I believe they're leading them to a conservative way, and in a way that it would be God-honoring and that you could be proud of. We heard from our North American Mission Board president, Kevin Ezell. We heard from Brother Paul Chitwood, which is over our International Mission Board, and you can be proud of what God is doing through those ministries. Churches are being planted, people are being saved, God is at work in those entities, and we can be proud of what is taking place there. And so I wanted to let you know about that as well. And so overall, the convention was great. I think I'm very satisfied with where we landed as a convention on almost everything that we voted on. But I can tell you, I am super glad to be back in the South. I did not lose anything over there in California that I want to go back and get. But there's nothing like the South. But I just want to say thank you. We through our ministry budget a couple $1,000s to send me personally. I took my family, but I paid for their trips there. But you pay for me to go and represent you at the Southern Baptist Convention, and for that I'm thankful, and I do believe it's an important part of the process. So with that being said, just wanted to give you that update. There's one other thing. We had an IMB, International Mission Board, sending celebration, and we sent over prayed over and commissioned out over 52, I think it was 52 missionaries to go all over the world sharing the gospel. And that's even gone. Some of those are going to serve in the same area that we have a missionary family that's serving in Central Asia. And so I'm excited about that. I think it's one of the highlights of what we do at the Southern Baptist Convention every year. Super special, super spirit-filled. And you be praying for those missionaries every day that have just been sent out, and those that are already serving. I know they'd be grateful, and they are doing the work of God, the hands and feet of Southern Baptist all over the world. And so you can be proud of that. I know this video's been long, but I wanted to give you an update and wanted to do it justice. It'll be coming to you via email. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, text me, call me, stop by the office and see me. I would love to talk to you more about the Southern Baptist Convention and where we're headed, what we're doing. But overall, I think we're in a good place, and God is blessing, and the future looks very, very bright. So thank you again for your watching this video, and if I can help you in any way, please let me know.